Hello, everyone. We're going to back up just a little bit and review control structures and if statements. So, if you remember correctly, we've actually done if statements all the way back at the beginning of the semester when we were working with Carol. Now, in Carol, we had the block coding where we could drag and drop, but the logic of an if statement still worked. It would check a condition, and if that condition was true, something would happen. If it was false, it would not do those set of statements. So now that we're in JavaScript console, we're still going to use if statements, but now we have to type them out, and we're going to have to use our own expressions rather than just the conditions for Carol. So the basic structure of an if statement is you type the word if, and then inside of parentheses, you're going to have some type of Boolean expression. This could be a Boolean variable. This could actually be two Boolean variables linked with logical operators, or it can be a conditional operator like what you learned in 5.3. Now, once you have your Boolean expression, that is going to be what the if statement checks. And if you remember correctly, Boolean expressions come back as either true or false. If the Boolean expression results in true, then we're going to run a set of statements. Now, to create statements, you go to the very end of your line outside your parentheses, and you open up a curly brace. Sorry, let me comment that out for you guys so I'm not actually writing any program. And then you're going to have some type of statement. This could be a print statement, this could be a processing statement, but we're just going to have some type of statement here. And then the last thing you do is you close your curly brace. So that's sort of the basics of an if statement. So we're going to do a practice program. And in this first one, we're just going to create a quick Boolean variable. All right. So to create a Boolean variable, we're going to go var and name it something. I'm just going to say old enough. That's going to be the name of my Boolean variable. And then we're going to do read Boolean and ask the question, are you over 18? Okay, so you have to be 18 years or older to do a lot of different things. So that's just going to be a really basic program to start off with. Now, down here, I'm going to open up an if statement. So I type if and then my parentheses, and now I'm going to call my Boolean variable. Okay, now if you are over 18, if old enough returns as true, then we are going to print a statement that says you are old enough to vote. Okay. And then I always have to remember to close my curly braces. So now let's go ahead and run this program. Are you over 18? I'm going to say true. And then it's going to print you are old enough to vote. Now, if I said false, nothing is going to happen in my program because this does not run if old enough comes back as false. Now, as you guys know, you can also type yes. Oops. Are you over 18? You can say yes, and it will come back as true. No is also an answer. Okay. So when you run these programs, just be aware, if this is true, then this prints. If this comes back as false, nothing happens. Okay. Now, I can use logical operators in here. So in order to vote, you actually have to have two qualifications. You have to be old enough and you have to be a U.S. citizen. So let's create a quick variable called citizen. And we're going to do a read Boolean here and ask, are you a U.S. citizen? Okay. And now my if statement is going to have to use a logical variable. If you are old enough and you are a citizen, then it is going to print you may vote. I'm going to run that program. Are you over 18? Yes. Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes. You may vote. If I say no to one of them, then nothing is going to happen, right? So if statements only print if something is true. Now, that brings us into what are called if-else statements. So, an if-else statement is the next part of conditionals where if this is false, I still want my program to do something. So, we add what is called an else clause. So, I'm going to come back up here to my little example. To add an else, you go right after your curly brace and just type else, and then set up new curly braces with its own statement. And then you close your curly brace. So in my voting example, if you are old enough and citizen comes back as true, it'll print you may vote. If either one of those come back as false, I want it to print out a message saying you may not vote. You have to be 18 or older and a US citizen. So I'm going to go else. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to print two messages for this one. The first one is going to say you may not vote. And then I'm also going to add another print line statement that kind of explains why. It's going to say you must be 18 or older and a US citizen to vote. And then, as always, whenever you open a curly brace, make sure you close a curly brace. So now when I run my program, I'm going to have two possible outcomes. Option one, it's going to print out you may vote. Option two, it's going to say you may not vote and you have to be over 18 and a US citizen to vote. So there are two possible ways this program can go. So if I say, yes, I'm over 18 and yes, I am a citizen, I get the first print line statement from my if, you may vote. If I say no, then I'm going to get the second set of print line statements saying you may not vote. Okay, so an if else gives you more than one choice. If it's true, then this. If it's false, then this. So these are quite handy for having multiple options. I'm going to pause there and let you guys catch up. Now, you are not limited to only using Boolean variables. Now, in this example, you have Boolean variables, but I could just as easily do this program using conditional statements. So up here, instead of reading a Boolean, I could read an integer. And instead of asking, are you over 18, a yes, no question, I could just say, how old are you? Now, what's going to happen with this is instead of calling the old enough variable, I'm going to say old enough needs to be greater than or equal to 18. This is now going to return true if the number that they put in is 18. If they put in any number lower than that, it's not going to work. Now, for US citizen, since that's not really going to be a number, I could do a read line, and they're either going to type in yes or no. If citizen equals the phrase yes, then it will count as a yes. So the only thing I've changed in my program right now is instead of reading Booleans, I've read other types of input and then just used conditional statements or comparison statements to verify it. So my program should run exactly the same. Now it's going to say, how old are you? I am 34. Since 34 is greater than 18, this part of my statement will come back as true. So old enough, 34 is greater than 18. Now it's going to ask, are you a US citizen? I'm going to have to type in yes. Now, as long as what I type, YES, matches this phrase exactly, this entire section is now going to come back as true. So now I get the you may vote. Now, be aware when doing it this way, it's a little bit picky on spelling. So if I did 34 and then I did all caps YES, it's going to come back as false because this has to match case-wise exactly. So just be aware of that. Okay. Now, if I say I am 17 and a US citizen, oh, there's all caps still, it's still going to come back as that false statement. So it's going to print you may not vote. So you are not limited in these if statements to Boolean variables, you can also use Boolean expressions. And that's where you have that combination of logical and comparison operators. Now, there is one other type of control structure that we have talked a little bit about, and that's if else if statements. So in this particular program, you only have the ability to check one thing. If you needed to check multiple options, you would use an else if statement. So I'm going to come back up here into my example, and I'm going to do else if. And an else if checks another Boolean expression. And then you would come down here with an else. Okay, so you can have as many else ifs as you need in order to run a particular program. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make a new program that's going to work with this, and we're going to do what's called a grade calculator. So the first thing we're going to need is your grade. So let's do a regular variable, and we're going to read in a number. We're going to ask, what is your grade percentage for this class? Okay. Now, they can put in a number between 0 and 100. Okay. Now, if I think at all about this, an A has to be the number between 90 and 100. A B has to be the number between 80 and 89. A C, 70 and 79, a D, 60 and 69, and anything between 0 and 59 is an F. So we're going to create a stack of if-else statements that's going to check each one of these. So I'm going to do if, and for this one, what I want to do is I'm going to check for an A. Okay. And the values that I need for that are the numbers between 90 and 100. So I'm going to say if grade is greater than or equal to the number 90 and grade is less than or equal to the number 100, then you have an A. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go print ln you have an A. Okay. Now it's only going to print that if we have an A in the class, and it's only going to print that if you have a number between 90 and 100. So if I ran this program really fast, what is your grade percentage for this class? If I put a 97, I'm going to get an A. Now, if I put any other number, let's say, for example, an 89, nothing's going to happen. So now we need to check for a B. So we're going to do an else if, and for this one, we're going to check for a B. Now, a B is any number between 80 and 89, not 90. Notice I said that. 80 and 89. So we're going to do grade is greater than or equal to 80, and grade is less than or equal to 89. So now any number that exists between 80 and 89 is going to result in a B. So we're going to open up our curly brace, go down a level, and we're going to print you have a B. And then, of course, as always, don't forget your curly brace. So now if I put in a 97, I get an A. And if I put in any number between 80 and 89, it should now print off a B. Okay. So we still have a ways to go. We still need to check for a C. So we're going to go down to the next line. I'm on line 17. We wrote else if, and we're going to need to check silly me. Oh, my shift is not working. All right. We're going to check for a C. A C is anything between 70 and 79. So we're going to go grade greater than or equal to 70, and grade has to be less than or equal to, I'll let you guess. You got it, 79. Okay. If you put in a number between those two, you have a C. So we're going to print out you have a C. All right. And then as always, close your curly brace. So this line is checking for a C. Go ahead and run it. What is your grade percentage for the class? I'm going to put in a 75. That's a number between 70 and 79, and it should return you have a C. All right. We're going to do else if. We're going to do another one. This time we are checking for a D. A D is anything between 60 and 69. So we're going to do grade is greater than or equal to 60. And grade is less than or equal to 69. If that is true, it is going to print you have a D. So our first one checks for an A, second one checks for a B, third one checks for a C, and now the fourth one is checking for a D. Don't forget to close your curly brace. Next, we need to check for an F. So I am going to do an else if. Now, some of you might be wondering, could I do this with an else? Yes, you could. However, we're going to do an else if, and I'm going to save my else for a special statement. So hold on to that. Do follow along. I am doing an else if here. Okay. So an F is anything between 0 and 59. So I'm going to put my two comparison statements. I'm going to do grade is greater than or equal to 0 and grade is less than or equal to 59. Now that is going to print off a message that says you have an F. And I'm going to run just a test message on that one. I'm going to do 56, and it should return you have an F. Now, if else if statements are wonderful for checking multiple things. So you can see here, I'm checking for 5 different possibilities in terms of possible grades. Now, there's another possibility that we run into anytime we have user input. What if they put a number that doesn't make sense? For example, what if they put a negative number like negative 89? That's not going to spit out a good grade. My program's not going to know what to do with that number. Or what if they put in a number that's really, really high, like 210? We don't want that to show that they have an A because that's not a valid percentage. So I like to save my else statements for what I call input validation. If they put in a number that does not fit any of the ranges, it's going to generate an error message. So right down here after my else if, I'm just going to type else and then set up some curly braces. Now I'm going to do 2 print messages. These messages are going to tell the user something is wrong with your input. Okay, so the first one is going to say error. Numbers should be between 0 and 100. So this tells them whatever number you put in doesn't make sense. It's not going to give you a grade. Okay. I can also do another print line statement that tells them that it's going to close the program and they need to try again. So I'm going to do stopping program. Please rerun and try again. So now if I put in any kind of weird number like -9, I'm going to get my error message. Okay, because -9 is not going to be a percentage that you get for a grade. Likewise, if I put in something really high, like 209, I will get that error message. So now that we have our complete program, let's go ahead and do multiple test runs. First, let's check for an A. Any number between 90 and 100 should give me an A. So 91, you have an A. B is any number between 80 and 89. So if I did 85, it should give me B. Good to go. C is anything between 70 and 79. So we're going to go 76. Prints out a C. D is anything between 60 and 69. So we're going to go 67. D. And then anything for an F is 0 to 59. So if I put in a 23, I should get an F. And I already did the bounds checking for my input validation. So if statements let you check multiple parameters. Now, most of your assignments that you're going to be working with right now just need if-else statements. This was just kind of a bonus for you. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope that you found this helpful.